our childhood is supposed to be carefree and full of fun and loving, warm environments and good memories. That's the ideal childhood, right? And but it's not. It's not our norm. As children, we don't get a say. We don't get a choice in the family that we're born into, in the circumstances that we're given right from the beginning. And so it's just something that, it's a chance for each and every one of us to have to endure some type of trauma or brokenness, because every family has their issues. Every generation, has some sort of dysfunction. And, you have parents who are drug addicted, you have abuse, you have neglect, and there's, so many different things that, could be there, could be cause for concern. A lot of people experience childhood trauma and the brokenness, even if it's just something as common as your parents are divorced or your parents never married. You live with a single parent home. These things seem normal to the world, to most people, but it's not. It's not normal, and it does leave some sort of impact on us. When we get older, we usually realize what kind of effect it had on us. So I wanted to talk about surviving a broken childhood. I feel like the main reason that I've started this channel and what I feel like God has led me to do was to be vulnerable and share my life experiences. Now, my life experiences I don't think they're as extreme as some others, because I've heard some stories, some testimonies of the things that people have had to endure in their childhoods, but it's not to discount the things that everyone goes through that may not be as extreme. So anyways, I feel, like I said, led that I'm supposed to be vulnerable and open and sharing these things that I've had to go through, so that I can encourage those who may be going through it now. If you're a child or adolescent, teenager watching this, or if you're, an adult well into your midlife or later and you haven't healed from some of these things. I think when we share these things, when we're vulnerable and we share our struggles and the things that we've had to endure with those who are going through them, it can be helpful in their healing process. It can be helpful for our healing process when we stop and reflect on what we've had to endure and how we've overcome those things. So I've kind of put off some of these type of videos where I'm just vulnerable, and I didn't want my channel to be about my life and the things that I've gone through, because I wanted to just be about encouraging messages. But I feel also, like I said, that I have to share some of these things so that people know they're not alone, and that you can overcome them. So anyways, like I said, it's not as extreme as some, but to me it was, especially when I was going through it. So here goes. This is my story. My mother was 15. She ran away from home, and she had met my dad. They were partying, and she told me this later, but it's kind of off subject. It doesn't really have anything to do with it, but they were partying with Kurt Cobain from Nirvana, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But anyways, drugs involved and all kinds of things. But so yeah, she ran away from home, from abuse, and she just felt like a lack of love, and she was searching for love, but in the wrong places. So anyways, she had her own brokenness and trauma that she was experiencing, which led to some of these things you're about to hear. So anyways, yes, back on track. My mom got pregnant with me, had me when she was 16. Her and my dad never married. She said my dad really loved her and wanted to marry her, but she just wasn't interested. She was very open with me during my childhood. My mother, and I don't know if it's because she was so young when she had me, and then she had my sister and my brother afterwards, different dads. But anyways, so she was very open, and she wouldn't hold back telling me what she thought about my dad. Like, he was a very kind man, good heart, but she would tell me how he was very unattractive and things along that nature. And so this distorted my vision of him. So the times that I remember having visits with him, and he was always so kind and like a great dad, but it affected the way that I felt about him. I kind of took on the same feelings that she was portraying to me about him. Like I didn't, I felt ashamed of him in a way, and like I didn't want to spend time with him. So during my childhood at this time, that didn't really seem to affect me. It didn't really bother me not having that relationship with my dad. It wasn't until much later that I realized that I really did long for that and I missed it. So there's that. And then, my mom was married several times. I had three stepdads during my childhood, and she had her fourth husband after I was 18 and moved out and stuff. And so anyways, during my childhood, I had the three stepdads. Two of them seemed really good. They were good, like role models for father figures. And one of them was my brother's dad. The other one was just a husband. But anyways, the third stepdad, that's the one that she was with the longest, and the one that I have the most memories of, which are horrible memories. I'll get into that in a moment. So yeah, several stepdads, and then we moved across the country, like 2,200 miles away from home, from Washington State down to Oklahoma. And it was part of the, so my brother's dad, after my mom and my brother's dad had divorced, he took my brother to Oklahoma. And so that's why my mom, she took me and my sister, and we moved down to Oklahoma with no family, just so that she could have hopes of getting my brother back or having some sort of visitation with him. And anyways, that didn't turn out well. We ended up staying in Oklahoma, and that also brought on some feelings later that I felt like my brother was most important to her. And I know that when you lose a child in that way, also I can see how you could be so focused on it that you might neglect your other children. It's not an excuse, but I can see, I have sympathy for her. I've forgiven her for all these things. Anyways, so we move across the country to try to get close to my brother. My mom meets that third stepdad I was telling you just about, and my mom and him are drug addicted. So for, I say, a majority of my childhood, from 9 until 16, my mom and my stepdad are doing hardcore drugs, and so I have to deal with that. And he's abusive to her. I see a lot of it. I see my mom and him fighting all the time, just things like that. And because of the drugs that my mom she would never stop. And when you have drug addicted people in your life, they're always denying it. They're always trying to hide it, even though it's obvious. You've caught them doing the drugs. You've caught them in their lies. You catch them, being sneaky. You wake up at midnight or 1 or 2 or 3, and they're locked away in the bathroom, and they won't come out for hours or whatever. And they think you're dumb. And so as a child, my mom would always deny it. But me and my sister, we knew what was going on. So anyways, these things, and then my mom not leaving my stepdad, even though with all the abuse, and he sexually abused my sister. He disliked me. He had a hatred for me, I guess, and it was mutual, so it was fine. But all this stuff, it led to me just having these feelings of hatred and kind of a disgust for my mother. I just kind of despised her. And I was a little bit disrespectful with my words and my attitude, but I also had some sort of a fear of her. So I didn't, I attempted to run away, but I came back because I was like, well, where else am I going to go? And so I just stuck with her and carried on. On a different side of it, if it wasn't about my mom, like I had these internal feelings too, these internal struggles. I always felt like I wasn't enough, like I wasn't good enough. I didn't fit in anywhere, and I felt like I was less than. I felt like I was ugly. I wasn't pretty enough like all the other girls, especially as a preteen and like a teenager. I was a little chunky, and I didn't have the most popular clothes, and I didn't know how to do my hair or any makeup, just things like that, just real insecure. And I had an unhealthy obsession with men, or boys at the time, and just I wanted to feel love too. I can relate to how my mother explained it. Like you desire that love, and since I didn't have, and I realized it later that I didn't have the love from my dad or any father figure, like I desperately wanted it in a relationship. And so, like I said, it was an unhealthy obsession though. Anytime, anyways, yeah. And then some promiscuity and just chasing after that kind of thing. And I believe that resulted from, because I had those father wounds. I didn't know the love of a man, the healthy love of a man. And so, yeah. All of this stuff though, it led me, like I was depressed. I had severe like mental illness, I guess, like not like crazy hearing voices and things, but just like the deep darkness and sorrow, and it was comfortable. It was a comfortable pain also, and it stuck with me for a long time. So, I drank as a teenager whenever I could. I started smoking cigarettes, I started smoking weed, and I just do anything to kind of escape the reality of things, something to just get outside of myself and to get some sort of physical release, I guess. I even cut myself sometimes. I didn't really have a support system either. I didn't have any family nearby. Like I said, I just had my mom and my sister, and it's not the same when you can pick up a phone. I didn't have cell phones then, but I could pick up a phone and call someone, but it wasn't the same. I needed someone like in my life. And and the friends that I did have, I had one really close friend, but she was just as traumatized about things as I was, and so we had that brokenness in common. That's what kind of kept us together. And so that wasn't helpful in the sense that I needed something positive and encouraging to look forward to. We were kind of just feeding off of each other's pain, and just that kept us together, that bonded us. So anyways, then later my dad, he passed away when I was 19 years old, and so I hadn't seen him since I was 16 at that point. And I had so much guilt because of the feelings that I had towards him, because not wanting to spend time with him for these superficial reasons. I had so much guilt when he passed. And so that kind of, it left me just feeling like an orphan, because my mom we didn't have that mother-daughter relationship that people look forward to or think upon with good thoughts, and no other family. So I felt orphaned. So it was like around this time when my dad passed that I was dating, or on and off with my first husband. And because I was I had this orphan mindset, and I held on to every boyfriend who anyone who showed me affection and love, even if it was broken love, and I held on to it so tightly. I was like, I had that obsession. I had that hole, that void that I didn't know how to fill. And so I clung to him, to my ex-husband, and I didn't know any better. I had no idea what I was getting into, and I didn't know. Anyways, that's a whole nother video, but just because of the things that I had experienced as a child, the lack of love and lack of direction and lack of a role model in a healthy marriage or even relationship, I didn't know what that what I was doing or pursuing was unhealthy. All this to say, there's so much that our children don't need to be susceptible to in the homes, because, I think that should be our goal. There's always going to be sin and broken people in the world, but if we can just do our best to break those cycles, to make sure that our children are safe at home, that we need to be whole and healthy before we bring more souls, little lives into these messed up situations. And because like I said, they're going to experience trauma and heartache and their own struggles outside of the home, with school and their friends, and now with the way technology is, social media and everything. And so we sure don't want to bring it, have them go through these things at home. And that was definitely something that I was aware of, even though I didn't know Christ yet, and I wasn't healed. Like I said, when I had kids, I knew, because of what I had gone through with my own childhood, I knew I didn't want them to experience multiple stepdads. I didn't want them to experience divorced parents. So that was another reason I stuck with my ex-husband, until I felt like I was willing to lay down my life and my desires for more, just to, that's a different video. But anyways, I didn't want them to experience the broken home, the broken family like I did. I didn't want them to ever have to deal with drug addiction or alcoholic parents or abuse, physical abuse, or even verbal or whatever kind of abuse. And I feel like I did a good job with, not bringing that into my children's lives. But then on the other side, I didn't have that foundation of even knowing how to raise children, of what it should really look like. So I was on the opposite side of that, of kind of too soft. And it was okay, like I said in some of my parenting videos, I don't know if this is your first time seeing my video, but anyways, I thought, well, I'll just love these children, make sure they have all their needs, don't expose them to these harsh, traumatic situations, and they'll be fine, right? But there's so much more to it than that, I realized later. So the surviving part of a broken childhood, I don't know really what to say, because I just made it through. And I really think looking back now, it was the grace of God that I made it through. Like I said, I didn't have a support system. I didn't have access to help. But if I would have just known Jesus then, if I had to go back and experience my childhood again, I feel like as long as I knew Jesus and had my faith, had a relationship with him, I could have made it out a lot easier. I could have maybe been healed a lot quicker. So I definitely suggest, or my advice is just find. I hope that you find Jesus, because that is definitely the true source of healing, and where you can find peace in the midst of all of these things. But even if you just have a counselor, find someone to talk to, someone safe to talk to, and to just express yourself with, a safe place to go. And I think also having internet or social media back then would have been helpful, because you could have, now you can just get online, and there's so many people that are sharing and open with their stories and their experiences, that you can kind of have comfort while you're going through these things. But like I said, I didn't have the internet and social media when I was growing up and having to go through these things. So that would have been helpful. And I'm really thankful that I didn't turn to drugs or alcohol. I experimented with them, but I didn't develop an addiction. I didn't let them take over my life, and I didn't fall into the same patterns. And I think it's helpful in the sense that I saw it happen already, and I was like, I don't want anything to do with that. But yeah, so some of these things that we endure, although they seem like they're horrible, and they are, but they are also teachable moments and blessings in disguise for, if you see something happen, you're like, ooh, I definitely don't want that to happen. Then you know what not to do to not get that result, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. So, if you're going through these things, or you have gone through these things as a child and you're not healed yet, I just want you guys to know that you're not alone. And I know that some children have it way worse than what I've just experienced or shared with you guys. And, my heart really goes out to those kids who have to experience these things personally, the harder things. Because I do feel very fortunate that this is all I had to experience, but not to discount it, because, like I said, even something that seems simple as your parents divorcing can be very traumatic. So you're not alone. We live in a broken and sinful world, and until we have more people awakened, until we have more people that receive their healing in Christ, it's going to stay that way. We can just do the best we can until we find him. So here's my advice for how to overcome or survive childhood brokenness. First of all, get immediate help if you feel like your life is in danger, or your basic needs of food, clothing, and shelter aren't being met, because no child should have to endure that. I know that sometimes we didn't have a place to live. We were in my mom's car, but we still had food. We'd have ramen noodles. So we still had something. I'm taking cold showers because the electric and gas got shut off or whatever. But if you can help it, if you have somewhere to go to get that help, then please do that, because some things we don't need to endure if we have a way out. I didn't have anywhere else to go. I didn't have any options. I had even experienced being in a foster home for, I think it was a weekend, because we were taking a road trip somewhere, and my mom got pulled over and they took her to jail, and me and my sister had to spend, I think maybe it was just a day, maybe or two, and in a foster home. And I was like, I never want to do that again. So even if it meant living with my drug addicted mother. So I feel for these kids who have it so much worse. Like, our children deserve for us to do better, to heal and give them better. Lord God, be with our children. All right, so the next thing, my advice is, don't let anyone else's issues affect your morals and values, or the way that you would, if you were healthy, if you had a choice in it, how you would live your life. Like, don't let those things affect the way that you choose to live just because it's what you're used to, because it seemed normal. It's not normal. So definitely choose better, and dream big, because one day when you're 18, you'll be out there on your own, and you can do, you have the freedom to live your life however you choose to. You don't have to, just because this is the way you grew up and the things that you're used to doesn't mean that's what you have to have. You can do big things. You can do better things. Don't follow the pattern of brokenness. Don't follow the addictions that you might, people say this is hereditary, and it might be true, but you don't have to choose that. So I just pray that you choose better. Let the things that you go through be a lesson and a drive for you to go for more, to go for healthy. And then journal your thoughts and your feelings out. Just have an escape, some place to put these things down, even if you just write it down and then you throw it away right afterwards. Just some way to get it out so that you're not all up in your head, because we can really be our own worst enemies in some of these situations. And then get and read the Bible. God, he is your shield and your refuge. And I just truly believe that if I had God then, it would have been so much better, so much easier to endure. And maybe I could have prayed my mom out of it. And so that brings me to the next thing, like learn to pray and do it often, because, pray for yourself and your family, for whoever it is that, is, whether they're addicted or they're being abused. Just pray for their deliverance, pray for their protection, and just for God's will to be done in their life. Because I do not think, like, it's not God's will that we have drug addicted or abused parents or neglected children. It's not his will. So yeah, just pray, and then forgive your parents, forgive your family members as soon as you can, as soon as you're able to. I know sometimes it takes longer, and it may take a lifetime to forgive, but we need to forgive, forgive them, because it's the brokenness and it's the sin nature inside that is blinding these people. Because if you think about it, a parent, they don't, most I think, would not say, oh, it's not their goal to have their children exposed to these things. Like, they want their children, they want to provide that love and that care and be a good role model for them, a good example. I don't think they would choose any of these things if they were in their right minds, but they're blinded by Satan, the god of this world, so they can't see. And so we have to remember that our battle is not against flesh and blood. And so it's not the person that has wronged us, it's the spirit inside of them that has it's the spirit. So we should be able to eventually forgive in with that mindset, and plus knowing that we've been forgiven, so we need to forgive as well. And like I said, that could take a while, but ask God to help you. And then love these people anyways. But, if you have to love them from a distance, that's fine. And remember to set healthy boundaries, because just because people are your flesh and your blood does not mean that they have to stay in your life. Of course, we would prefer that, because we have, that built-in connection with them. But we can forgive them and love them from a distance. And, if that's what you need to heal and overcome these things, then, do that for a while. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes the friends and people that we inherit are way more beneficial to our mental and emotional and spiritual health. And so that brings me to the conclusion of all this, that your healing is important, and it's possible to heal from these childhood wounds. It just might take some time, and really you have to be able to be okay with facing these all the ugly emotions that might come with it. But it's worth it. Your healing is worth it. And Jesus came to heal us. He wants to set us free. And the word says, for whom the Son sets free is free indeed. So I just pray that you find a relationship with Jesus. You stay close to him, and you let him do the work in you that might need done, so that you can be whole, so that you can go out and then you can love on others properly. You can love God, you can love yourself, and you can love others properly. And we can finally stop this, put maybe a little dent in this cycle of brokenness, and just one family at a time, one person at a time, one relationship at a time, just making it a little bit better. And so giving us more hope and peace and joy. So you guys have a blessed night. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and I really appreciate you guys' support, and I hope that this has been helpful to you.